Okay. Anne in Virginia. Anne?
Hey guys, how are y'all?
Fine, how are you?
I'm good. I'm working on an argument, and I wanted to float it past you. I think that if you are an atheist and you consider yourself moral, then you have to be a socialist, or you have to believe in the socialist economic system.
I already don't agree with you, but you haven't given me your argument yet.
Please don't yell at me. I will change my opinion based on evidence.
Okay.
But the idea is, capitalism basically is a competition. You know, who can make the most money and do better than their fellow humans, and who can, climb to the top of that pile. Whereas socialism considers all humans have innate value, and they should all be taken care of to a certain extent.
Well, I mean, first of all, not getting into the parts where I agree with you about your values, maybe to some extent, I do want to say that there's nothing about being an atheist that makes you necessarily value humans.
Well, I think she's talking about atheists that claim they're innately moral. If you're going to say I don't value human beings, I think you're pretty much outside that group of
I think maybe you could make an argument that humanists should be socialists, although I'm not sure I'm willing to follow you there either. But I would probably start there instead.
The thing I'm thinking about is that, for an atheist, we are the true believers in YOLO. You only live once.
Okay. Sorry, I have an allergic reaction to the phrase YOLO. I like who said it was carpe diem for stupid people.
Okay, I apologize.
But
I should have.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Sorry.
But so if we turn away from our fellow humans that we believe are only here one time around, then that makes us immoral. And that's the direction capitalism goes. You have to compete. You have to try to sell people things they don't need. You have to climb up this ladder, which is basically, in one sense, it has to do with evolution. Evolution is competition among animal species, and we are animals. But
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but have you hashed this out with any objectivists? Because they would say, and I don't agree with them, but they would say that the only way to be truly moral is to be as capitalist as possible. And I think, just like I was saying to the guy earlier about who's a true Muslim and who's not, it's most interesting to put the two of you in a room and hash out with each other what is the absolute correct path. Whereas I don't think, I do think that there's a way to discuss morals without getting into the kind of absolutes that you and they would be talking about. But I don't know where I'm going with this. Bail me out, Tracie.
I can't bail you out because I appreciate socialism.
Okay.
And I'm
not saying I don't.
Yeah. And I think the issue here is the question of whether or not you can be moral and not socialist, which I think is where you're taking it to a point where you might be walking into deep water. I understand what you're saying about it. Well, first of all, there's the question of what is morality. I have a very boundary-tied idea of what I accept as moral and what I do not accept as moral. And so, to me, obligation to other people, to what degree? There is an obligation to other people. I accept that, and I accept that as a moral imperative. But there is a point that the obligation begins to falter, right? So, for example, everybody would probably say that if you saw someone dying in the street and you didn't even bother to speed dial 911 as you were driving past in your car, most people would say, wow, that's pretty immoral that you didn't even, you don't even do the slightest thing to inconvenience yourself in a way that's not even an inconvenience, and you're letting a person bleed to death on the side of the road just from sheer, complete lack of all of the moral metrics: lack of compassion, lack of empathy, lack of, a sense of fairness, equity. I mean, it's, in my opinion, void of any metric that we would, usefully apply to the term moral. But at the same time, you have situations where there's a building burning down. Let's say an orphanage is burning down, and I'm watching it burn to the ground, and there's all these poor children stuck in there, but I feel like if I run in there, I could die. I think most people would be sympathetic if I said I felt horrible. I felt like I was so helpless and I wanted to go and help, but there was nothing I could do. Most people wouldn't say, you're an immoral, horrible person. You just have to run in there, and if you die, you die. I mean, we tend to draw a line when it comes to the cost of our lives or the lives of others that are going to have to be traded or potentially put at risk for helping other people. That's when we say that obligation is too much and you have to consent to that. That's not something we can just as a society compel. Now, where is the line between dialing 911 as I drive past or putting my life at risk for other people? I think most people would say putting your life at risk is kind of beyond normal, or beyond moral. That's why we tend to call such people heroes. We'll say like, it was a heroic act, right? It was beyond the normal human obligation. So where that line is of where you have not met an obligation that makes you now having crossed the line of morality, where that line comes where it's like, this is too much to ask of you, I don't know.
Yeah, I look at morality as a set of competing principles that are always kind of in conflict with each other. I don't want to hurt people, but I want to have as much freedom as possible. And when those different principles come into conflict, it can be subjective in a sense about which ones you give more weight to. I mean, I am more liberal than a lot of people that I know, so I'm very much in favor of social safety nets and programs that don't let the poor starve in the streets. But at the same time, I do have some amount of individualism where I don't think that I necessarily have to, like Tracie was saying, sacrifice myself in all situations, even if it's for the greater good. I think those things need to be balanced out, and I think that morality is never as straightforward as saying, we've discovered the exact formula for how you should act in all cases.
Sure, absolutely. I would return and argue that the driving past the injured person on the road is what happens in capitalism, only slower. And it's, the further you get past the person, the easier it is to forget they were there. And that's why I lean toward a socialist economic system that tries not to forget.
Yeah, that may be, but you're going to drive me to defend kind of right-wing economics, and I hate that I'm heading in this direction.
No, Russell, no. Come back. Come back to the light.
Just because I have to be contrarian here, but I mean...
Oh, sure. Well, that's the whole point of me starting the conversation.
I mean... Gosh, unintended consequences. I mean, basically, individuals need to have motivations and incentives to act a particular way. And if you go too far in the direction of removing personal payoff and demanding that they go all the way over on the side of sacrifice, you're going to wind up with a very apathetic population.
Sure.
Yeah. At least
but it isn't really that extreme.
And of course, I would think that an objectivist would go way, way farther with that principle in the other direction than I just did. But I do think that there's a little bit of merit to that point.
I just think innovators will innovate, whether they're rewarded, concretely or not.
Sure. I like
some of our,
I'm a software engineer. I like programming for fun. But I also really like to get paid. And
sure.
Some of the stuff that I do...
Socialists will pay you.
Yeah. But still, I don't know if I can keep going with this, though.
That's okay. Can you tell me what I should name your building? I'm designing a secular college, and I've come up with a name for everybody except you.
Me?
And all I can come up with is the anesthesiology lab, which will be the Glasser gas passer.
Whoa!
Your name
okay.
I've got the Tracie Harris Terrace, the Dillahunty dwelling.
Mine's a lot nicer than yours.
What is this, Dr. Seuss College?
I think yours just got named because you're arguing.
Yeah, but it's going to be a socialist,
Oh, well, that'll
secular
teach me.
college if I ever win the lottery.
Right.
Wow.
Okay.
Sorry, what do you think on it?
Yeah, I'll give it some thought. All right, thanks for
We'll
calling.
give it all the
Thank
thought
you.
it deserves.
Right. Bye.